In 5 years, the Belt and Road Initiative has linked China with many nations, near and far, and laid the foundation for much to come. I talked to a few leaders from some of the participating countries. Before diving into our conversations, let's take a look at the progress the initiative has made. A healthy dose of skepticism is always important. However, the capacity of commitment is definitely the key to make any vision come true. That is also true for the Belt and Road Initiative, also known as the BRI. Since 2013, the development strategy focusing on cross-border connectivity and cooperation has battled waves of doubt and skepticism about China's ambition and motives. Is it new colonialism? Is there money for it? Is it sustainable? Is it environmentally friendly? Now, all of those questions are important for clarity to prevail. However, I would argue one could only stay stuck if they were so overwhelmed with questions that they forget about preparation, action, and progress. Therefore, asking those questions alone does not help much. What is needed is to proactively take advantage of the BRI, which has been welcomed by governments around the world, and solve some of the biggest problems we face today. For example, when the vision of globalization is being threatened now by unilateralism, what should we do? Well, the BRI, which places emphasis on connectivity and cooperation regionally and globally, could be a cause to renew enthusiasm about globalization while trying to deal with some of its most difficult side effects. How to make sure everybody could win? It could be a confidence boost for globalization, an elevated version of globalization 2.0. Of course, no one is saying the BRI will be the solution to every problem we have these days, but it could definitely be a solution. Secondly, the extensive scale and diversity of BRI projects have shown that the initiative is inclusive, even though at the start of its implementation, Chinese development banks were mainly providing funds. But as time goes by, the BRI could serve as a lodestar, leading major corporates, public sectors, and financial institutions into cooperation. The oil pipeline in Myanmar and rail network in Asia, for example, are believed to be necessary and successful projects. Financial institutions and other players could, as a result, become much more active. Thirdly, the Chinese economy is experiencing challenges of its own now. Its growth rate is slowing down in the process of looking for the best ways to go about structural reform. Its external challenges are also increasing, such as the impact of the trade conflict with the United States. At the same time, the country is looking for new ways to reform and open up. There's no magic remedy to cure all the symptoms and deal with all the root causes at once. But, as the Chinese experience suggests, only through development can new momentum and solutions emerge and spread. The BRI could be a big possibility to bring about possible solutions as its projects move forward. As we mentioned earlier, skepticism helps us adjust, but it is actions and real plans that get us where we really want to be. Last but not least, when the remaining of the Chinese population comes out of poverty, an unprecedented market will be presented to the world. That has been the key to growth worldwide. When the BRI brings countries together through connectivity and cooperation, poverty will be tackled during the process, and the real world market will emerge. Remember very clearly, last conversation we had was during the Belt and Road Forum being held in Beijing as well. You know, it's only 5 years, the BRI, from the time it was initiated to the time now it is being gradually implementing. But Mr. Secretary General, to you, what are some of the most important takeaways for the past 5 years, particularly if you think about cooperation between China and Africa?
No, I think the most important is exactly this capacity to look into each project not as something that is isolated, but into everything integrated in the Sustainable Development Goals, everything integrated in the Agenda 2030, everything integrated in the African Agenda 2063, 100 years after the first independence,
yes.
And to make sure that all this is combined and all converge with the same purposes. And obviously, when a new initiative comes, there is an effort that is needed to make sure that this initiative fully fits into this global approach, and that is the role that the United Nations can help to provide. To make sure that there is coherence and convergence of all these initiatives. And of course, the increase of the Chinese role in international cooperation is a very important tool for development cooperation to be more and more supportive of the developing countries to be able to reach the objectives and the targets that were defined by the whole of the international community, by the summit of all heads of state in the Agenda 2030.
Mr. President, I understand Belt and Road Initiative, for example, is one of the initiatives that China and South Africa are working on together.
Yes.
Particularly, South Africa is an important nation among the maritime Silk Road. Mr. President, how do you see this idea, first of all? I mean, it's only 5 years in the making, right? Since the very beginning of being raised up, that initiative, to now, where is it, according to your assessment?
Well, the Belt and Road Initiative is an important one, not only for China, but also for South Africa, because we see that as strengthening the relationship between the two countries. But it is also based on a number of important pillars, and the pillars of the various agreements that we've got with China around a number of other areas of infrastructure build, of investment, of trade, and the Belt and Road initiative then comes on top of all this and cements and strengthens all these relationships. And with that, we also want to see implementation, because we just don't want to end up at making announcements. We want to see how the undertakings, the agreements are implemented.
BRI forum successfully concluded. At the end of the day, what do you make of the role between the IMF and this mechanism of Belt and Road Initiative?
Well, first of all, the Belt and Road Initiative is, in my view, a very positive proposal by China. And it is positive from a growth perspective. We have always advocated infrastructure projects around the world, both hard infrastructure, soft infrastructure as well, in order to support growth in the short term, but also to improve the terms in the longer perspective. And that's exactly what it is doing. But it is doing it in a very special way, which is a coordinated way. That's where the IMF can play a role. We can help the coordination of policies between the various members of the Belt and Road Initiative. And we can also provide technical assistance. As part of the BRA project, we have signed an agreement with the Chinese authorities, and we're going to dedicate capacity development expertise that we have in Beijing for those who will need special technical assistance, special training, in order to put in place efficient infrastructure projects, in order to coordinate at all levels. And from those two perspectives, policy coordination, capacity building, we can really provide the decades of expertise that we have in these fields.
Madam Lagarde, there have been different debates about what is the nature of BRI. Is it globalization 2.0, as China said? Or is it part of a new globalization, as you beautifully mentioned several times internationally? Or is it China's geopolitical ambition involved? What exactly is it from your perspective?
For the project to be successful, it has to be mutually beneficial for all the participants. It's the virtue of the network, of the connections, of the interrelationships and the linkages that will be established that will actually deliver the added value to each and every project, to each and every country. It's a bit like, you know, some of the inventions of the past, the telephones, or anything that is based on network and connections. If you only have a small number of connected beneficials, it's going to remain a small project. If everybody is connected, if everybody benefits, then it's going to be a successful venture. So I think that it's difficult to articulate a single purpose, because each and every participant will see benefits to it. But that's the key, that everybody can benefit from it, and that there is this sort of joint approach to mutually beneficial outcome at all countries' levels, which is why policy coordination and governance will matter in the long run.
Even though a lot of people talk about there have been dramatic changes going on in the world, but not many actions, not many implementable initiatives have been raised up as a result of that. So as the head of the IMF, Madame Lagarde, I do want you to help us understand, where can we go from here?
You know, one of the most critical objectives is inclusion. Make sure that poverty is eradicated as much as possible. Low income have a chance to get higher. And to do that, it's much easier when you have growth. That's number one. The Belt and Road Initiative should certainly stimulate growth. Number two, once that growth is sustainable and stronger, then you need to invest in those propositions and projects that will help people. Better education, better training, better adjustment to that new society, which will be much more fueled by technologies, by new devices. And number three, appropriate redistribution policies in order to make sure that there is a proper sharing and there is a proper burden sharing by people, because it is otherwise that sense of being excluded, being deprived, the system being unfair, that leads to rejection of the entire system, which can otherwise be very beneficial.
AIIB is working ever closely with China, for example, on some of the Belt and Road Initiative projects. Does that mean that you are getting this nature about China's contribution ever clearer than all the other natures that the AIIB is supposed to shoulder?
You know, talking about Belt and Road Initiative, I think it's interesting for me to share with you some of our perspectives on this issue. Some people confused Belt Road Initiative with AIIB, and I've tried my very best to clarify.
And this will be a good occasion to do that.
But you see, some people asked the question, why did the World Bank, ADB, EBRD, and the New Development Bank, which is headquartered in Shanghai,
that's right,
and
with the BRICS,
AIIB entered into agreement with the Chinese Ministry of Finance about supporting the Belt and Road Initiative? And so my answer is, first of all, don't look at the initiator, look at the initiative itself. Is this a good one? If it's good, we should all support this kind of very, very good initiative. As you see, World Bank and other institutions have always responded to the initiatives of the major shareholders, G20, APEC. It's all right.
You mentioned a lot about infrastructure throughout our conversation, Mr. Minister. Yes. As you may know, this year also 5th anniversary already of the Belt and Road Initiative, otherwise known as the BRI. It's supposed to be a platform and an initiative to make countries and all kinds of players to come together about connectivity, about cooperation on infrastructure. So the question is, how much opportunity does Italy see in this initiative?
We think in Italy that the Belt and Road Initiative is a real great project. It's a very comprehensive strategies for collaboration between countries. then Italy is strongly interested in participating in this big project, both along the land route connecting Asia and Europe, and along also the maritime route connecting through the sea, Asia, China and Europe. And of course we think that Italy, for historical point of view, but also looking at the modern time and the future, can be the natural terminal of the maritime route of the Belt and Road Initiative. And then we can have a partnership in order to operate in third countries, or in China, or in Italy. But we understood that this project is a project that is not limited to the economic issues, but it's a big project that is important to increase the collaboration between the countries involved, and in this way it's possible also to govern the big change in the economic, in the global, the big change in the global economy in a collaborative way.